Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube, Twitch and YouTube. And if you want to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today, we are doing chapter 21 of The Captain's Heart. Well, look who's joining us of his own free will, Janice called as Jeremy headed to the table his friend sat, tray in hand. Ha ha, he replied dryly, sitting next to her. She's right, William said. These last days it feels like if you weren't on that ship, you were locked in your room. I hear even Omar had trouble prying you out of there. Sorry about that. The days have been rough, and I needed time on my own after them. And today wasn't? Actually, well, Oh, right, this is not his weekend. And today wasn't? Lucy asked. Not as much. I've been trying a new technique to manage my stress, and for a first day, it worked better than I expected. Well, did it have anything to do with who visited you last night? Omar asked, not looking up from his plate. Wait, Alice exclaimed. Did our very own, I'm perfectly happy being alone, get a nighttime visitor? Ergen said what she thought that implied. It was a cat, Omar said, and Alice's expression turned disgusted for a second. It was the Kelsirian ambassador, Jimmy said. He was on the ship that afternoon and saw me take my pills. He was curious why, and yes, Omar, he is who taught me. It's a Federation technique even they use, and I figured there was no harm in trying something else, because there are times when the pills don't seem to be enough. He didn't say anything. This is very much first draft, so a lot of the time dialogue has very little to it, other than indicating who's speaking if I feel the need to. Like when I do the second draft, this is going to get clever because there's nothing about Omar's expression, his mood, and I'm not doing this now. This is a second draft thing. You didn't say anything. I can print you a stronger dose. If this doesn't work, I'll let you know. But you said it did work, Marcel said. It's the first day, and it takes a lot of concentration. I figure it'll get easier as I practice it, but if it doesn't, then I keep my pills with me. You met the ambassador? Lucy said with awe. Is he as fat as Will said? I said he looked like he was fat, he corrected before Jeremy could reply. He wore his vest, but yes, the way it looked on him, I think there's a substantial mass to him. That made them, except for Omar, chuckle. Jeremy wondered what was up with his friend. He was usually the first to join in anything that gave them a laugh, especially when it involved Kelsirian. Jeremy ate, joining the usual conversation. If he felt like talking about it, Omar would. Was the corridor darker? Jeremy looked behind him at the unbroken wall vanishing in the distance and tried to tell if something had happened to the lights, plural. Maybe it was his imagination. He faced forward and frowned at the hallway, also stretching as far as he could see. That wasn't right. There should be something there, something important, a place he needed to get to. Wasn't there? He could swear he'd entered the corridor intent on something. He looked at the box in his hand and frowned. Had it always been a box? Why would he carry a box to... He couldn't remember where. He took a step forward and froze. He couldn't go in that direction. He had to, he thought, but he couldn't. There was something ahead of him that he wanted. No, it was terrifying. He didn't know how he knew, but he was certain. The corridor and the corner of the box poke in his chest, and his worry eased at knowing he had it. It protected him somehow. With it, he'd be safe, crossing whatever stood between him and his destination. He stepped forward and the floor shook. No, the station. Had he done that? Was he putting everyone in danger by going ahead? He held the box against him tighter, tried to find comfort in its safety, and took another step forward. The walls cracked. Light poured through them, and Jeremy sat with a scream, his stomach tied into knots, at the knowledge that he'd been about to die. His breath wouldn't come. He couldn't he couldn't call. He couldn't calm. He couldn't calm down. He reached for his pills on the bedside table, and his hand knocked the partially unlocked puzzle box off. And it... Look, there's no... And it fell on the pair of pants he'd left on the floor when he'd undressed. He stared at it, desperate to latch onto it, for it to make what he felt go away, which was stupid. It was nothing more than a box his mother had sent him. It wasn't what could help him. For that, he needed... He looked at the box on the bedside table. He looked at the bottle on the bedside table. The box he held in his mind. He had trouble seeing it, probably because he was already panicking. The pills called to him an easy way to fix this, but they'd still be there if he couldn't manage it. He focused on it instead of how shallow his breathing was. He could already envision what he felt. Not something oozing this time, but something filled with sharp angles, lodging itself into him, making every breath pain. When he saw it, getting it open proved just as difficult. He couldn't remember to Wow! He couldn't remember how to unlock it. What Slat moved how, he'd never do it. The pill bottle was easy to open, much easier than this. He ground his teeth, and he'd opened it if he couldn't pull this off. Maybe losing this battle wouldn't mean anything in the grand scheme of maybe losing this battle wouldn't mean anything in the grand scheme of the quiet war, but Jeremy didn't want to lose any ground. He felt like each movement ground against his mind, but finally the cover was off, and he shoved the spiked thing into it, slamming the cover shut behind it so he could get lost in that extra-dimensional space. He took a slow breath and smiled. Another battle won. He felt back on his bed, arm over his chest, as if the box was cradled there, and he chuckled. He'd stood his ground. He'd always stand his ground. It's where you belong, a voice whispered at the back of his mind. A woman, he thought as he fell back asleep. A memory of his mother, maybe? Jeremy pulled himself out from under the control board after installing his latest attempt at a functioning circuit. Okay, tell me this section is isolated and that a power charge is ready. I've verified that all connections to the rest of the reactor control have been undone. The capacitor is connected and waiting to be discharged. Jeremy smiled at Toruk. It had taken 3 days for him to finally understand that when Jeremy told him to do something, it wasn't a direct order to do that, but for him to go through the motions of making sure it was what needed to be done. The first miscommunication had meant he now had a full section to rebuild once he knew how they worked. Wish us luck, he told the Kelsirian, finger over the activation button. Xenila Karam, be kind, Toruk whispered. Jeremy pressed it. The board lit up, then went dark. He waited, looking for any sign it had failed. When there was no smoke, after 15 seconds, he jumped and fist-pumped. Finally! Is it fixed? Toruk asked, watching him with what Jeremy thought was a perplexed expression. Not even close, but at least now I know this circuit's design. The circuit I'm going to make it possessive. The circuit's design, there are dozens of other I have to figure out. How long will that take? I don't know, he admitted. I know you probably want to go home as fast as possible, but you guys have designed something truly different from anything I have built before. Alex designed the reactor. I didn't help build it. You guys really... I didn't help build it. You guys really take your role seriously, don't you? Rank is important. It tells us our duties, who we need to answer to and who answers to us. Don't Earthers respect rank? Not as seriously as you do, and it's human. Is that an Earther rank? Jeremy laughed, resting against the edge of the control board. "No, we refer to ourselves as humans, not Earthers." Turek typed something on his tablet, then scrolled until he found what he was looking for. A planet appeared over it. "Isn't this Earth?" "Yeah, it is." "Are you from a different planet?" "No, I was born on that one, Salt Lake, Utah, to be exact." "Then why are you calling yourself something different?" Jeremy opened his mouth. Jeremy's mouth opened, and he couldn't come up with an answer. "I guess it's just what we've always called ourselves." "Have you always called yourself Kelsirian?" "It is the planet we came from." Turek hesitated. "Is Earther a term of insult?" "No, you're right. It's the planet I'm from. But don't be surprised if you get corrected by every human you come across." "They will understand. So the repairs will take time?" "Yes, but not as much as I was afraid yesterday." "Since this test didn't burn anything out, it means I'm starting to understand how your engineer works. Doesn't mean I can just print every other circuit, but working out how they're designed will be simpler with that understanding and so on. Don't worry, you'll get home soon enough." "What?" Turek stopped chuckling. "This is my home, my ship, my crew, my family." "You have no one on Kelser?" "Trarakar is the planet I was born on. No one stays. It's harsh, few herds. I'm not a digger. I became a technician and joined a ship. Came here 9 Kelser years ago. This became home." "I guess I'm like that a bit, too. I don't really have much of a need to go back to Earth, even if all my family's there. I'm comfortable here." "You love it here." Before Jeremy could ask what he meant by that, Turk's eyes flicked to the side and his body language shifted. It always did when he saw him. You know what? I'm going to italize this. Jeremy took a breath and called the box to his mind, already mentally taking hold of the oozing mass. Today was the day he finally let that man know how things stood. He shut the box on his chest and turned. He locked eyes with those golden ones and took a step forward. "Out!" he snapped, pointing to the archway. The tone stopped Growler. "Jeremy?" Truck warned. "No." He didn't let go of the golden gaze. "This is my engineering. I don't care if Alex let you gallivant in here. Wow. How?" "Whenever." "Whenever you want. You wanted getting underfoot, but I don't accept that. You want an update? Call Turek. There is absolutely no reason for you to come down here and stress me out." He pointed again. "Get out." Hands up, and with what Jeremy thought was an amused expression, Growler backed away until he'd left engineering. Jeremy turned away to notice everyone staring at him. "What?" "Only Alex talks to the captain like that," Turek said in awe. "Good. Then he's used to it. Maybe now he's going to let us work in peace. Come on, everyone, back to work." He did a shooing motion that had no effect. He looked at Turek, who said something in Kelsirian, and the others returned to their station. The hallway was darker than it should be. He was certain of that, and he clutched the box tightly as he walked. It didn't provide the sense of safety it usually did, and that thought struck him as odd. It was his first time walking here, among the trees, but that was fine because he would protect it from the things stalking them, wanting to take it, to break it and unleash what it held. He didn't know what that was, but he had a sense that opening it wouldn't be good. The trees shuddered, and for a moment he thought he'd be vented into space, but he pushed on. He wasn't letting them win. He didn't care if losing a battle meant nothing, didn't mean losing the war. He didn't want to lose another battle. What he was after was ahead. He wouldn't turn back, not this time. So he pushed through the banners, doing his best not to think of what was only steps behind, waiting for him to falter. When he stopped, then he stopped as he made out a form through the settling banners. Tan, lean, with tight muscles, hair so long it went down his chest, a muzzle filled with teeth and claws. Everything about the being standing there screamed danger. If he continued, this creature would rip everything that made him who he was apart. He had to turn back. Something urged him. Safety awaited for him, except that whatever was behind him didn't feel safe. Suffocating was the feeling he associated with it. Something clinging to him. He wanted nothing to do with that. Not anymore. The roar nearly sent him running into it, but he stood his ground. This was where he belonged. He knew that, somehow. With another roar, the creature ahead lunged at him. Jeremy sat, panting, fighting for breath, for his heart to slow. Claws. He remembered claws by his head, but he hadn't turned back. He had stood his ground. He had trouble visualizing the box, but not as much as the previous night. When he grabbed the spiked thing, it oozed over his hand, tried to pull back into his mind, but with finality, he visualized himself flicking it into the box and closing it. He laid back, keeping the box in his mind. He stood his ground, he thought, as he fell back asleep. And that concludes chapter 21 of The Captain's Heart. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read this story, it is up on Ream Story. If you want to listen to it live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.